Welcome into this Thursday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. Chase Parham and Neal McCready, Clark Ford studio this morning. We will talk with Jeffrey Wright here soon, waiting on him to log in, to give him a call. Obviously, coronavirus, schedule, suspended NBA season, still overtaking the talking points today as we get started. Ole Miss did beat ULM yesterday, but that seems of absolutely no consequence right now.
Yeah, let's not.
I think 18-7 was the score, but whatever. Anyway, we'll get to everything here on today's show. Is here with you over the next hour and a little bit on a podcast brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West in Oxford. Daiquiris, ribs, lunch specials, great gas prices, courtesy of Speed Pass Plus out, the mobile rewards program, and more. The Oxford Crystal is right next door. The Crystal is in Saltillo, is operational and doing well. So a lot of options there as you're getting out to raid the convenience stores for toilet paper and water and bread, and basically having our pandemic version of a milk and bread milkshake right now. So Oxford Exxon, Oxford Crystal, and again, coming to you from the Clark Ford studio.
We are Clark Ford's in Amory, Mississippi, 662-257-1900. If you're in the market for a car, if you think you're going to be in the market for a car, hell, you're going to have a lot of free time. If you just want to get a quote for fun, it'd be a time to do it. Call that number. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He'll send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours, right to the bottom line. No hassle, no haggle. You get your quote, and the rest is up to you. Corey wants to be your car guy. He wants to be your truck guy, and he'll prove to you what that means when you make the call. 662-257-1900. Guest, including Jeffrey Wright, will join us on the Rafters Music and Food Hotline. Rafters reopening after spring break on Friday. If there's college basketball to watch, you can watch them on the screens there. If you were planning to go to Swayze and they still play college baseball, they'll have that on the screens there as well. Be a good place to get together, have a few beers, watch the games. And then on Sunday, of course, they have their Bluegrass Brunch. It begins at 10:45. Chicken and waffles, homemade biscuits, mimosas, Bloody Marys. Sounds pretty good. 10:45 at Rafters Music and Food on the Square in Oxford.
So yesterday was the tipping point day in sports as far as cancellations, as far as changes to schedules in general. From a local angle, the SEC basketball tournament did happen. Ole Miss loses to Georgia last night to end its basketball season. Neal has coverage of that at rebelgrove.com. Fans were allowed in. That will not be the case starting today. No fans in the arena at Bridgestone.
I got to be honest. We rarely in the Clark Ford studio have the TV on. I've got it on today because I don't know why. I'm expecting them to pull the plug.
Yeah, I expect today to be the day things just get suspended in general. We'll get to that. There's a lot of different things, but also as of right now, and I stressed that at 8:10 a.m. on Thursday, no fans at all spring SEC sporting events, basically all sporting events around the country. Essential personnel, families, whatever. But again, I see this changing at some point. But as of right now, they're playing the games with no fans starting on Friday night. The SEC announced that just after the Ole Miss game last night on SEC Network with Greg Sankey. But I'm going to run through this because I think it's relevant, and maybe not all of it, but I think it was Brian Fisher yesterday on Twitter listed everything sports related that happened yesterday related to the coronavirus. We're talking 50 to 60 different things. Just, boom, boom, bullet points.
Yeah.
From 11:30 yesterday morning Pacific to 9:43 last night when Fred Hoiberg was diagnosed with influenza A, not coronavirus, for the Nebraska head coach.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so they were quarantined for a little while following their game, but that is not. They were released fine. There were no issues there as that happened. So many places to go here. To where I'm almost kind of getting scatterbrained a little bit. The big news last night, the NBA suspends its season as Rudy Gobert tested positive for coronavirus. Neal was watching live. Jazz Thunder stopped seconds before tip-off.
Yeah, so here's what happened for people who didn't see it, because a lot of you were probably watching Ole Miss Georgia or not. You probably weren't watching NBA League Pass because I'm the insane one. There had been some rumblings earlier in the day. Some people on the Utah Jazz beat had clearly been frustrated with what was coming from a coverage deal, and frankly, by 7 o'clock, I know Ole Miss pulled within 5 at one point in that game last night, but there was never a moment where anyone rational thought Ole Miss was beating Georgia. Georgia played with more energy, blah, 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 blah. I flipped over to OKC and Utah because I just kind of wanted to see it. I had a feeling this is going to be the last NBA game for a little while. And I flipped to it, and they had introduced the lineups. They were on the court. And suddenly there was movement around that scorer's table, and immediately you knew what it was. And they called Quinn Snyder, the Jazz coach, Billy Donovan, the Thunder coach, to midcourt, talked for a minute, and then they went to their respective benches, and it was, hey, peace. And the officials came, got their stuff, left. Few minutes later, they did this little weird – they had this like weird 5-minute interim thing that was kind of strange.
Where nobody knew what was going on.
Yeah, it was almost like, hey, how do we announce this? And I think that's exactly what it was. And then they announced it. And, you know the rest. And the Jazz were quarantined last night. There's going to be news that come out from there. All of the Jazz players, personnel, some of the media who cover them were all tested. Supposedly the Jazz are preparing 2 different charters today, one for people who test positive, one for people who don't. They had to stay in Oklahoma City last night. Of course, they had to go back to a hotel. They had checked out of a hotel. They have to go back to a hotel, and you're putting people back in a hotel, and the hotel doesn't know, are we letting in people that have coronavirus? It was a weird night in the NBA. And then I think the league announced immediately, hey, we're going to suspend this thing. But I think they were going to let the Pelicans and Kings play. And one of the officials at the Pelicans-Kings game had worked a Utah game a couple of nights ago. And they're like, you know what? We can't. We don't know. Does he have it? So they before those teams ever tipped, they suspended that game as well. And the NBA has shut down. We've already had a couple questions in this live stream. What are you hearing? What I heard last night from talking to some people who are around the NBA, and then we just heard it just then from Brian Windhorst and Rachel Nichols, 6 to 8, 8 to 10 weeks likely, and the NBA can resume, which is going to get us into the topics that we cover more in a minute. I think those are what they said just then on that. I guess what's that show called? Get Up, which I never watch. I think that's accurate.
Yeah, and I'm going to set Jeffrey up in a second. From an SEC standpoint, basically all the athletic directors met for hours yesterday in Nashville to discuss different options. And they had the 3 options. You go as planned, just being safer. You do no fans, or you postpone, suspend, cancel, whatever word you want to use for things. And at first it seemed like, hey, they're probably going to go to no fans, but it's going to be next week, the week after. Kind of wanted to get through the basketball tournament and then go from there. And then somewhere around mid-afternoon, things started changing rapidly, basically after Mark Emmert came out and said no fans at the NCAA tournament. And when that happened, things progressed to the point that they were just trying to figure out how to announce it and what exactly to say. Jeffrey, I saw you on Twitter last night. You think everything is getting shut down in the next 48 hours, don't you?
Can you give me till Monday?
Sure, if you'd like it.
Yeah, I do. I think there's going to be some hanging on, but inevitably, I think that's where it's going to fall. I think, like, take for instance, and this honestly, I'm not crapping on the SEC. I'm not crapping on the SEC, but think about yesterday, like in terms of how this all developed. They were planning on playing the conference tournament up until Wednesday. What? Wednesday at noon, probably, Neil?
Yeah. They were going to. I think they were still holding on to the hope that this thing was going to go on as normal up until Wednesday around midday. The ADs met all morning. And these conference tournaments are happening all over the country. I do think as late morning got into the lunch hour, from what I was kind of told by some people last night, I think it became obvious that, and you and I talked about this, because of Selection Sunday, they did have a natural target they could punt to. And,
right.
And I think they elected to and look, they might scrap this today, I don't know. I think they elected to take that option and say, hey, let's go ahead and punt. We can punt this thing to Sunday afternoon. We have until Sunday to kill it. if we have to kill it, because obviously we don't announce it until Sunday at 5 o'clock. Hey, Xavier, you're going to here, and Tennessee, you're going to here, and so they do have until that time because the plans are in place to send those teams places. But I'm like you. I don't think I need till Monday. I think I'd want till midday Sunday to say something emphatic. But if you made me bet today, and let me say this, I hope I'm wrong. But if you made me bet today, I would bet against the tournament happening.
Well, with everything, I feel like every league is waiting on patient zero right now. I mean, NBA got it last night with Rudy Gobert, and I was talking to an NC baseball person yesterday, and they said all you're waiting on is one LSU player to get it, and then when it happens, they can't travel. They're having to be like it shuts everything down. So it feels like it's just simply a matter of time, if I'm being honest.
Let's get one thing straight.
Sure.
My job is to talk about sports. Do you think I want this?
Well, I mean, legitimate thing. I called Neal last night, and we were being serious. I said, look, we can do a podcast because we can talk about whatever, I guess. But with no sports, what is going on the website? What are we doing? And I was serious. I told Neal, I said, are we covering news? Are we literally going to become news reporters for a month just to do something and give content?
Well, I mean, this is what drives me insane is there's two reasons, in my opinion, or two critical reasons, in my opinion. But this, let's call it what it is now. It is officially a pandemic. Even the president admitted to this. This health crisis became political. And because it became political, it got insufferable. And now we're at a point where countries throughout the world are shut down, and everyone in America is calling us pussies because we're shutting down. I mean, that's where we are. And
I wouldn't turn the air down. I'm hot.
It's just driving me insane. And it's absurd to me.
Are you... I mean, I don't know this. You and I haven't really talked about it. We've just seen Twitter and back and forth and stuff. From a sports standpoint, I get it, because what they're doing here is if you can slow the spread, it doesn't overtake hospitals. It does a lot of. You don't necessarily minimize the outbreak, but you do spread it out, if that makes sense, which is a huge positive and which allows healthcare to be more efficient. I think that's a different argument for me than some of the just personal argument as far as everybody must stay in the house for the next 6 weeks. I don't necessarily think that's logical, and I think the way we're just buying up stuff at the grocery store in bulk right now is one of the dumber things we could possibly do.
In my opinion, two things can be true.
Yeah. Sure.
Or even three things can be true.
Sure.
Number one, there can be panic, and unjustified panic, which I do think we have plenty of examples of existing. Number two, this can be an infectious disease that spreads incredibly rapidly. And number three, it can also be an infectious disease that a large portion of people will contract, and it will not affect them to an extreme degree. With that being said, it can still be an infectious disease. And I think what was lost throughout all of this, it started, of course, with the president. Essentially, the markets are tanking. And the president knows this as well as anyone else that follows politics, even with a grade school level understanding. Unless something happened to the economy, he was staring at re-election pretty handedly. The world markets start tanking because of this, and all of a sudden, he's throwing out the media conspiracies. On the flip side, the media has never been based on my research. The media, according to surveys from respected institutes, the mainstream media has never been trusted or respected less in American history. And so you had irresponsible news coverage of this. You had a president that was making claims that were not true and claims that went against even his own White House claims and his own medical professionals. And then you have the media that are portraying this as something more than it is, and it's the end of the world, it's apocalyptic. And so it wound up just being this massive, I mean, for lack of a better word, it was a football game against your arch rival. And you had a lot of people that are sitting in the middle and like, I imagine it's like being in Chicago, Illinois when the Egg Bowl's on Thursday night or on Thanksgiving night. Like, you realize these two people hate each other, but you're like, man, I just want to watch some football. And it was just, it's been so annoying. It's been so insufferable. And now it's reached like our home levels of, I got a honeymoon planned at the end of June. I got a panic fiance. I got, we're looking for a house right now. And, I've got a mother that's panicked because they're close to the retirement age. And
you do have the float down option though, Jeffrey. So
we do have the float down option. And shout outs to Jason Lowe, who's had to deal with us because, wow, what an experience that must have been.
Sorry, go ahead.
Community Mortgage, I cannot recommend them enough because, again,
you can lock in now, and if the rates change, you still get the lower rate.
But more importantly, when you're doing a loan, a lot of this, especially, or at least in the housing market that I'm in right now, you need a lot of things done very quickly. And I can text Jason and get it done in about 15 minutes, which is unbelievable to think about.
Yeah.
And to me, like, that's why you go to Community Mortgage, because you actually can get Jason's phone number.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
But like, that's where we are now. Like, it's just been insufferable. And, America's not a bunch of pussies for shutting down. And if you think that, you're fucking stupid. Push the button. I'm sorry. Like, I'm so like put out with this. Because there is one way to slow this thing down. And you slow this thing down by shutting down. South Korea did it. For God's sakes, China did it.
And this is what's interesting to me. We were just listening to this a minute ago. Brian Windhorst was talking specifically about the Chinese Basketball Association, which I know nobody cares about. But this is where I think this is interesting. He said in China, they basically shut it down. It's been about 9 weeks, and things are just now beginning to return to normal. He was talking about how the Chinese Basketball Association teams have begun calling the players back. They're going to get them back, make sure everybody's healthy, test people, all that stuff, and then, try to resume at some point. I think he said mid-April, which is a month from now. That very well could be what we're looking at in this country. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. But I heard this number a lot last night from people. I heard 8 to 10 weeks of kind of a – I'm anticipating news out of Major League Baseball today. They might punt a little bit. They might say, hey, we're just going to shut camps down and reevaluate. I don't know. Thought it was interesting. Joe Madden, the manager of the Angels, said last night, hey, I think we're going to get a 1-month reset button here. We're going to shut it down for about a month and then come back and figure out where we are. And I thought it was interesting, and I don't know whether it was just because it's a date on the calendar. There was a whole lot of the word 3 weeks yesterday from a lot of sports organizations. We're going to a lot of colleges. Hey, we're going to shut it down we're going to add a week of spring break. We're going to, whatever. And we're going to revisit this in 3 weeks as if 3 weeks is some magic number. And maybe it is. I don't know. There was a lot of that. I tend to think the more realistic number based on what I was hearing last night is somewhere between 6 to 10 weeks before we can really get back to anything resembling normal.
I was reading a 538 story last night where it was talking about that everybody's focused on temperature, that humidity is what they think potentially kills this off. Now, again, they have no idea yet if it's seasonal or not, if it's like SARS where it just goes away and doesn't come back, who knows. But they thought that humidity levels during that time would get to a point where it would start to dissipate because of when it gets on a surface, how long it can survive in its water bubble or whatever. Again, I'm not a scientist, don't start me there. But
this is a thing that's driven me insane as well. The whole the reason why it feels like we're taking drastic measures is because this has not been explained very well. And those that actually did good coverage, and I give full credit. I think the New York Times has actually done a very good job of being realistic and reasonable in their coverage of this, and I think the Washington Post has done a very good job of this. Outside of that, I haven't seen a whole lot of what I would consider to be responsible coverage. We're basically back to like primitive stages in dealing with this because yes, it has symptoms that we're familiar with and we are used to treating, but we've never seen this virus before. And so we can't play defense against it. And because we can't play defense against it, the only defense that has been effective is the shutdown. And it works. And so that's the reason why it feels like we're taking drastic measures. If you think it's an overreaction, I do think there's some I can concede that it does seem drastic. The point that I would make is it's the only defense we got right now.
What does our economy look like in 8 to 10 weeks, though, if that's the case? And I'm not arguing with you. That's the part that I keep focusing on today because I was talking to a lot of people locally. And I mean, if summer basically starts in Oxford, I mean, real quick.
Are you saying domestic economy, or are you saying like what do the markets look like?
Well, either, whatever. I mean, yeah, take your pick. But I mean, locally, and I get this is such a microcosm, and really not even that. But Ole Miss is not probably. They're going to do another week of spring break, it sounds like, and then they're going to go online only for at least some period of time. I was talking to one person yesterday that said, well, some of the problem with that, even on that period of time thing, is so you're going to send all these kids home going into areas that are likely more affected or infected than Mississippi is. He didn't think they would come back. Thought that once you're gone, they're probably gone for the semester. It'd be very hard to get them back. Yeah. So, but the point is, summer starts now.
Whoever that guy is, I would listen to his thoughts.
Yeah, summer starting now. Businesses locally, there'll be 10 to 15 businesses in downtown in Oxford that, frankly, might have to either shut down or completely change their models. I mean, there's only a few people immune to something like that locally.
It's why when Trump when he suggested, we're going to make sure the hourly people are not ruined by this. Mark Cuban said that, they're instituting a policy with the Mavericks that are going to help take care of those people. I think it could get pretty bad. I do not think, unlike for instance, the financial markets being down, I think that is a little bit, to be a very, surface level. A large portion of that is, basically 20% of the world has been quarantined. And when 27% of the world isn't engaging in commerce, markets go down. To me, really what it's shown is how dependent financial markets throughout the world, the U.S. economy, the world economy, is on China. Locally, man, I mean, think about this, man. South by Southwest, which is a name brand. I mean, I get it. It's kind of indie. It's cool. It's whatnot. But because they canceled, I mean, they started laying off people, man, left and right. And I do think that it could be bad for months.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I'm not saying they should shut down instead, but Ole Miss is not equipped for online courses in a majority of courses. They simply either it can't be taught or they're not set up technologically for it. So again, this is not really a criticism as much as you're just kicking the can down the road and really not accomplishing much at all by doing this.
And I think they're buying them. It's like the NCAA message yesterday. I think everyone's just at this point. I think a lot of people at this point are buying themselves time because they don't know what to do. And by the way, I'm not pointing the finger at them saying you should know what to do. I completely understand why you don't know what to do because there's so much unknown.
Ole Miss this morning was trying to figure out what to do, or yesterday, I guess. I was talking to somebody about it this morning. Was trying to figure out what to do about dorms. You've got international students. You have other students that just have nowhere to go, and it's what people in the UK are dealing with more. I was reading this from The Guardian yesterday. So Harvard, this is 1 day ago in the story, so if it's outdated, I apologize. It said Harvard University in the U.S. told students on Tuesday they must move out of their houses and student residences by no later than Sunday, and that all classes would be conducted online after the spring holiday in an attempt to contain the spread of the infection. No cases yet have been detected at the university. Oxford University said it would remain open despite a second student testing positive for coronavirus. In a statement, it said Public Health England has advised the university that the risk to other students and staff is very low and that university and college activities can continue as normal.
I mean, Neil and I were talking on the phone yesterday, and he goes, I expect to have to drive up to Fayetteville and get Campbell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I do anticipate going up there next weekend to load her stuff. I think they're going to shut it down. Every indication there, and it was you can feel something move quickly, and you use the analogy of a car going down the hill, and at some point it's going so fast that you can't stop it. It felt like that. I mean, the correspondence that they were getting and that professors were sending, and that I saw screenshots. It's going to be really hard to put that toothpaste back in the tube, and the truth is there are more cases than we know of, and as we're going to start hearing of more cases as testing becomes more prevalent. Yeah, I mean, I anticipate she'll be home for the semester, and one of the reasons that I'm making a liquor run today, she was not sure she loves being home. Coming home for 5 months was not in the plans. But there's a lot of people that. Here's the thing, and I've kind of flip-flopped on this over the course of the week. Yeah, I know what it's going to do to markets, and I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that it hasn't stressed me out a little bit. But if we as a country don't get it under control, the thing is, according to top doctors, 10 times more lethal than the flu. I'm really tired of the flu comparison. It's not the flu. It's different than the flu. It's a lot worse than the flu. And
for the record, you're to a swine flu survivor.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah, I did too. I had to think for a second. That paused me.
You did.
I survived.
Has that 10 times number been confirmed? That's been a weird. It's been some fuzzy math.
It's a top medical person saying it. I mean, I've seen X-rays of what it's done to people's lungs.
Yeah, I guess the point is we still don't know how many people have it. So saying that there's a mortality rate is very hard to determine. It's not really argumentative.
Right.
It's just I'm of the opinion that it's everywhere, and if it's everywhere, we don't know a mortality rate.
But when we talk about markets. Let the hospitals get to a place. Let the doctors get to a place where there's no more room, where you're doing what they're having to do in Italy, which is decide who dies and decide who lives. You'll see chaos that'll do things to the market that we've never imagined before, in my opinion. So, look, I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because I'm an American. I'm used to having freedom of movement and getting to watch everything, and last night when the NBA shut down, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my nights now? But I do think there's going to be a pretty major shutdown for a while. But if we don't get it under control, and this thing isn't subject to some of the same laws of nature that other viruses are, and we don't know, if we don't get it under control, you start running into the fall. You start running into a much longer kind of a thing where.
Stop it.
Well,
I'm sacrificing my second favorite sporting event of the year. Don't you dare come after football.
That's kind of one thing. If it's seasonal, it has a chance to come back. Whether it's not seasonal, and you might could just get rid of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's almost kind of, hey, what 6 of one, half a dozen of the other? What are you really wishing for right now?
I want to get it under control and make it go away so that sometime this summer, the country can start getting back to normal, and that in the fall, we are back to normal.
Thank you. Much better.
But what I'm saying is, I do think that you have to start listening to people, and some of these top medical people have been saying this. We've got to have, what's the word they use, social distancing?
Yeah, I think it was Oregon and Washington that banned anything over 250 people, period, no matter what, moving forward. I think those are the first 2 states that have done that.
Well, like people are talking about in the stream here about the NFL draft. You can do the NFL draft from remote locations. You don't have to have the song.
Oh, did you see the boats?
Yeah, you can do it without the boats. You really can. I mean, the truth is, a lot of that stuff, the made-for-TV stuff, you can still operate as normal. People talk about the NBA and the offseason and stuff. The NBA can still hold its draft. They can hold their draft in the playoffs. It doesn't have to have a big song and dance thing. You can do all of the things that you want to, that structurally, you can do all of those things without convening everyone in one place.
Was that what I saw you retweet it last night, Jeffrey? The NBA players sharing the planes. Is that going to have an impact on anything? We think.
I think the correct answer is we don't know.
Okay.
I mean,
you mean
they were
sharing
using
different
the same
charters?
Yeah. They were able to connect that Grizzlies, some charter the Jazz had to 5-6 other teams, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I mean, planes recirculate the air. I mean, you know what I mean?
It's why I think the NBA is very clearly going to do this 8 to 10 week shutdown. To me, there's no doubt that's what they're doing. They're a pretty progressive league. Silver is more proactive than he is reactive. I think that's exactly where they're going. They've played enough of the season where they can say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how the playoffs are going to be set up. Deal with it. I don't think they feel like they have to finish the regular season. They can take an 8 to 10 week break, which would be what? Middle of May, and then you go play the playoffs, and the playoffs go into the second weekend of July. You can still do the draft as normal. It's going to push free agency back. It's going to make it where they have virtually no off season, but is what it is.
Got anybody interesting on the show today, Joe?
Well, I'm doing both shows today by myself, so that's fun. I mean, it's a news day.
It's a news day.
Jeff is actually going to Fort Worth because as of right now, the AAC is going to play.
Okay.
I am curious to see if games do tip off.
I am too. Fascinated.
I can see where the conference tournaments. I can actually envision a world where conference tournaments play, and then we don't have the tournament, which will be weird.
Yeah, because the conference tournament, their argument is, and it's valid, hey, we're already here anyway. We can just play it. But the problem with the NCAA tournament is
travel.
Travel. I mean, you got to put, I don't know, pick your team. Let's say Memphis gets in somehow. Memphis gets sent to where? Are you still going to hold the damn thing in Spokane? I mean, what are you doing? You got to put people in hotel rooms. Do you know the hotels are clean? You start getting into the liability word too. So you send Memphis to Sacramento, and a kid gets COVID-19, and can he sue? You put me in a situation where I wouldn't have been in otherwise. You should have known it wasn't safe. I'm suing. That's why I just don't think the tournament's going to happen. I hope I'm wrong. If you made me bet today, we'll leave it here. If I made you bet today, does the NCAA tournament happen, Jeffrey?
My bet is no.
Yeah. Have a good day.
All right, guys.
It's Jeffrey Wright on the Rafters Music and Food Hotline. Yeah, look.
Jay Bill is saying right now on this that he doesn't see why games should continue, and I think the momentum is moving in that direction so strong.
Here's another thing too. With the NBA making that decision last night, I saw and I'd love to give credit, and I don't remember because I've read so much on Twitter and so many stories. There was a sports legal expert, whatever, however you it wasn't Michael McCann, but one of those type people,
okay,
who said that the issue that colleges, SEC, NCAA, whatever's going to have now is that with the NBA making that determination, it brings litigation even more to the forefront should anything happen. And we're in such a litigious society as it is. That's why so many of these decisions are getting made. Let's just keep it real for a minute.
Of course.
It's because of potential lawsuits.
Of course.
That the SEC, for example, just, again, example. Baseball player gets it. Fans get it, and they can try to track it back to a stadium or essential personnel. Forget even fans, just period.
Sure. That
in a legal ramification situation, you might have to prove or at least argue why the NBA with professional athletes had enough caution to cancel. However, you went ahead, thus putting people at risk.
Right.
That potentially brings an extra level of litigation in play as this thing moves forward.
Agreed.
Yeah. Again, right, wrong, and different, not the point, but that was an extra layer that came there, and that's why. Look,
But you said it a minute ago, and there was a story that came out earlier yesterday. It's now since outdated. It was incredibly well done. I read it. I can't remember who wrote it. It was about, hey, the NBA, MLB, they're all just waiting for patient zero.
Yeah.
And ironically, 4 hours later, they found him.
The Athletic wrote the first story about it.
Yeah. No shock there. It was really good. Well, now they have patient zero. So the NBA was put in a position where they have no choice. And so now everyone else, really, Major League Baseball is on the clock at this moment. You have all these teams. How confident can you be? 30 teams, 26 players on the active roster, coaching staff, support staff, media relations, nutritionists, the whole deal, right? So what number do you want to put on each team? 50
Sure,
people?
yeah,
Okay.
sure, whatever.
50 times 30 is 1,500. What are the odds that those 1,500 people, there's not one? Maybe the odds are good, but as soon as there is one, you have to quit. It's why this is not going to happen. It's why I'm just betting against all of it. And I hope I'm wrong. I'm not trying to be negative. I just think until there's almost this all clear given from the health, the medical community, the health community, I think the button's getting pushed tomorrow.
Take Ole Miss, for example. They're going to play a game with Ole Miss for baseball is a revenue sport at Ole Miss. They make money off the sport.
Yeah.
It is in the budget to make money off the sport, especially when you've sold this many season tickets.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're a ticket holder, Ole Miss is going to contact you, try to figure out some way to compensate you in some fashion. I have no idea what that is. So that's what Keith told me last night. So now they are getting none of the revenue from a game other than obviously season tickets and money that's already in the coffers. Otherwise, nothing coming in. No concessions for the most part. I'm assuming none, period, frankly.
No.
None of that stuff.
Way too much liability on
But
concessions.
yet you have every expense that still comes with the game.
Yes.
You're still having to figure out, how, even more than ever, stream it. You get security, all these different things that you still are having to do. And this is not just baseball. This is every spring sport.
Yes.
So suddenly this is becoming a money drain to continue to do this on top of everything else. You're annoying season ticket holders, even though it's out of your control. There's so many elements here, even beyond just waiting on a player to contract this virus, that, nobody hopes I'm wrong more than me. I will be a little stunned if Ole Miss plays Arkansas in 2 weeks in baseball. That's about the time limit I'm putting on this in my mind.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be stunned to see them go to A&M next week. I would be a little surprised if they play the third weekend against Arkansas.
Hell, I won't be surprised if they don't play this week.
No, I am too. I'm just saying, if you made me put an over-under on something, the A&M weekend would be my over-under in the middle. Hey, do you think they play that weekend? Go under. If not, if so, you get the over. That's kind of where I am. Hope I'm wrong. I mean, it's just I'm reading tea leaves. And even yesterday, and
you got to hire security people to keep. It just it becomes. And so if you're like a Missouri, for example, Kentucky, those are not revenue sports. Those people are saying, "Hey, why are we doing this?" And those are the meetings that are going to happen today in Nashville. I think where some people say, "Hey, what are we doing? Why are we doing this?" Because you can't just play baseball and cancel everything else. You got to play every spring sport or no spring sport.
Mm-hmm.
So you get into all the security and all the supports and all the liability, like you just said, for all the different things. How do you determine what family is?
I'm assuming that just goes on player tickets. I don't think they're actually going to get into genealogy here. I think we're just doing player tickets. But
I was told last night that was something that had been discussed around the room. People just were like, ugh. Maybe you just give, hey, you have 2 tickets or you have 3 tickets or you have 4 tickets or. But, when you let those people in, here's the liability thing. You let one of those people in, and it turns out they have it, and they spread it.
And I don't think you'd be liable at that point. But
I think those are the things where you start asking, back to your point,
Frankly, you might have to make every player sign a waiver.
you might.
Just go, hey, it is what it is if we're playing this game.
So I don't know what's going to happen. As today gets going, I will be just sort of whether today is a sort of take a deep breath day, or if today's the day that Major League Baseball announces they're shutting down, at which point the pressure increases even more. Baseball's supposed to, what's today, the 12th?
12th.
Baseball's supposed to start 2 weeks from today. Games are supposed to start 2 weeks from today.
Curious if they hold out and say they're in open air stadiums for the most part, and that keeps anything. I doubt it, but that's sort of where.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, the impression I got was that the impression I got from talking to people who were around baseball was that they were going to either go all in or all out. Now, spectators won't be there, but you have traveling teams. You're putting people in the air. You're putting people in hotels. You're putting people in buses. You're doing all of these things that create exposure. When the medical community is saying, limit your exposure. Limit your exposure.
We'll continue this in one second. For us to tell you if you're injured, not sure where to go, no matter where you are, Special Orthopedic Group has you covered with 3 convenient locations in Tupelo, Oxford, and New Albany. No referral is needed to schedule an appointment with one of SOG's fellowship-trained, subspecialized surgeons at any one of the 3 locations. With 24-hour scheduling, SOG makes it easy to accommodate you. Call 767-4200 or request an appointment on their website, www.sogms.com. Special Orthopedic Group. Choose a specialist. Choose SOG.
We're also brought to you by Oxford University Bank, OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. They're home to Casasa, the absolute best cash checking account, also home to a commercial checking account, now paying 1% interest as long as you keep $10,000 in the account. Comes with fully interactive online banking. To learn more, go to liveoxfordbankoxford.com or call 662-234-6668. We're also brought to you by Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, it's a great place to go. Grenada Nissan USA is the website. Great lease deals, new, previously owned vehicles as well there at Grenada Nissan. We're brought to you by John Edwards of Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. Obviously, if you are traveling this summer, if you are traveling in the holidays, you're starting to plan travel, think about travel, you need a professional at this point, certainly. And I would highly recommend John. All you do is you give him a call, you give him some parameters, you give him a budget, he'll give you options. You don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of his services. 901-494-3387 or send him an email, jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first book trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. And we are brought to you by the Westin Jackson. I put my mailbag up yesterday. It's probably already a little outdated, but there was a lot of coronavirus talk in it. It is home to Soul Spa. It is home to Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro. It is a Marriott property in downtown Jackson. If you're traveling in Jackson, doing work in Jackson, traveling through Jackson, or just need a place to recharge your batteries for a weekend, highly recommend the Westin Jackson in downtown Jackson.
Podcast is brought to you by Visit Oxford. Visit oxfordms.com/events. The Oxford Film Festival is coming soon, March 18th to 22nd for that. That'll also have the premiere of It's Time, the Chucky Mullins story that Brad Gaines has been involved with, and some others. That's that Friday night. There's also a charity fundraiser thing on that Wednesday night that some of the former Ole Miss Chucky Mullins Courage Award winners will be in attendance, and Brad and some other ones. So you can find out more at oxfordfilmfest.com, or again, visit oxfordms.com/events. Look, part of what the psyche is doing right now, not just, locally a lot, because Ole Miss has a really good baseball team. They're trying to play this thing out, let's be honest. But sports has always been our escape. Sports has always been the thing that in tragedy, we remember George Bush with the vest, or we remember whatever.
Sure.
After Lynn Bias or anything else, it's been what we clung to. And when that is kind of taken away in the middle of everything else in the upheaval, I think that's what a lot of this emotional response is right now too. That the hobby, the pastime, the way we sort of clear our minds is clearly being stopped in front of our faces. And I think that changes the psyche of America a little bit amongst people that are sports fans. I think it changes everything. I think it's a negative mental state. And when you associate that with a lot of SEC towns, Oxford especially, I mentioned to Jeffrey, right now more than anything else, I'm terrified local economy wise. I mean, you're talking about. I was talking to a Square owner yesterday who said that in April, if kids are gone and these games don't happen, normally probably looking at a 66% decrease in sales over last year.
Yeah.
Or at least what was expected. I talked to another store owner who said that basically inventory had already been purchased and you're stuck with that can't be sold through a store. So a lot of that stuff is on my mind. You've got potentially schools shutting down. Well, and again, this is not big picture saying, hey, you can't do anything, but what about the kids who depend on school for food? What about the people who have nowhere to go? What about these hourly workers that if you don't have this, they literally go into they become impoverished? Like, what about all these things? I mean,
well, they're going to have to come.
I'm not being rude. I'm not being insensitive, but at some point there is a negative to this as well.
Well, of course. But the sports don't matter.
That's not what I'm talking about.
I know, but what I'm trying to say is, yeah, the universities are going to they're going to have to keep some food services available. They're going to have to do some things for students.
Elementary school kids, though.
I know. I anticipate that call in the next week. I think you're going to see school systems listen, I think as a society, we're getting ready to sacrifice. We're getting ready to.
But is it sacrifice or is it death?
I don't know.
For us, it's sacrifice. We're not who I'm talking about.
No, I mean, I think we're about to test our systems. I think we're about to get. I think as a country, as a state, as a local economy, all of those things, we're about to get tested.
Yeah, I mean, you and I are not impacted nearly as bad as some people would be.
I mean, I hope
not. Acknowledge that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
At least it would take longer. I mean,
it would take. Yeah, I mean, But what the medical people are saying, and I think at some point you have to start looking around the country and going, okay, wait, the Pope didn't go to Mass.
Mm-hmm.
You have to look around and go, Ireland is canceling the St. Patrick's Day parade.
They are.
This is not all American politics. Smart people are saying, hey, guys, we got to get this thing under control. It's a global pandemic. I've been on the we're overreacting page for all week, and I'm now to a place where maybe this is what we need to do. Maybe it's time to do the cleansing thing, to hit the refresh button. Maybe everybody's just going to have to live differently for a little while. I mean, I get it. I hate it for businesses and such. I hope that, I didn't get to hear the president last night. I've seen parts of it. I've seen him get some praise from both sides about, hey, we're going to figure out some stimulus packages to help people through this. We're shutting down the travel from Europe, which is probably really smart. When he shut down the travel from China, he got killed. Mm-hmm. Everybody called him a racist. I'm not a Trump defender, but he was right. There's a lot of blame to go around across the board. But I think we're, like I was saying a minute ago, I interrupted myself. I think schools are going to shut down, at least for a while. I fully anticipate, the Oxford schools are on spring break right now. I fully anticipate a punt. Hey, we're going to take another week of spring break. We're going to maybe take 2 more weeks of spring break. And does that stress people? Yeah, man. I mean, be a really good time to be a babysitter. People got to figure it out. I mean, I don't.
I'm worried about the kids that don't have that ability.
Yeah, I know.
That's my concern.
And we're going to have to do some things where maybe we have some in school stuff where some people have to step up. I don't know what happens. This is as we told Campbell last night. I'm 50 years old. I've never experienced this. This is, someone said the closest thing that America's ever had to this goes back to like 1918.
Okay.
So we're all in uncharted territory. And so as a society, we're probably about to have to figure it out.
My other concern a little bit is that, and I don't know, I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an economist either. The way our economy is built, do you just hit a button and automatically restart it? You know what I mean? Like, there's some issue, too, on that side of it, okay, well, how quickly does that take? Because I feel like we got to shift through some gears a little bit for an economy built in this fashion to this size.
So we as a nation have always been incredibly resilient.
Yeah.
And my guess is that we will be resilient again. But, like I said, we're about to get tested a little. And maybe, and I hope, this is my hope, My hope is that the people that are hoping, and there are some smart people saying this, 3 to 4 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks. Then we can start to get back to normal. I hope in 3 to 4 weeks, Campbell goes back to Fayetteville and finishes her spring semester, gets to hang out with her friends and take her final exams and all of that stuff. I hope that the Oxford kids get to come back and finish at Ole Miss. I hope that the high school graduations happen. I hope that the kids get to go to prom. I hope for all of those things. And maybe this thing kind of dies out, and in the middle of April, they've been able to survive the baseball season. Maybe like for Ole Miss, maybe they just had to take 2 weeks off where they shut it down, and they can resume and go, hey, we're going to play a 24-game conference schedule. It's going to be all right. We'll convene in Hoover, and we'll play, and we'll figure it out.
Weeks 2 through 5 are canceled.
Maybe so.
Go ahead.
That's what I hope for. But I think I think it's time for everyone to get past this. This is nothing but a political whatever. I think it's become obvious that it is more than that. That when you see the way that, forget sports for a minute, you see the way that Apple and Microsoft and some of these companies have reacted by telling their employees stay home. They're getting medical information somewhere. It's the one thing I'd love to talk to some of the people who were in Nashville yesterday. What medical information are you getting? What are they telling you? Because I think kicking the can down the road 3 weeks buys time. There's no point in doing hey, let's just shut it all down today.
Well, like you said, it's both. I mean, it's what Jeffrey said. It's 2 or 3 things. And as American media consumers, we, you, whomever, are so bad at going, hey, there are some bilateral things. It's such a media consumption, because of the way the media acts most of the time, is so unilateral right now. It's got to be one thing. Just one thing. That's it. Can't be 2, can't be 3, can't be 10. There can be no nuance. It's one thing. It can be all these things. Hey, as Jeffrey said, it can be a litigation decision in a lot of ways. It could also be a very serious medical thing too. I mean, it's because I think both are in play here.
Sure.
I mean, I do think some of this would be a little different if you were not at all worried about legal ramifications. I do. I think it plays a role in it.
Of course.
But that's not saying, hey, well, that means, no, I'm not saying there are others not important too. I'm just saying I think all this plays in here. I mean, to this point, the only people who have completely stuck their head in the sand is the PGA Tour. They're meeting at noon today. As of this morning, they were playing the Players' Championship as played with fans for round 1. They sent every player a text last night basically going, hey, get ready, suit up. Alan Shipnuck, a golf writer, really good. He got a text from an Augusta National member this morning. The Masters, obviously, is not too far away. Says, I believe the tournament will be played. Discussions are ongoing. Limiting patrons seems likely. Might be none at all. Closing practice rounds. Canceling the par 3. Everything's on the table. Expect an announcement next week. Also noted, if the numbers spike, that changes everything. Meaning here in the U.S., we're hardly testing anyone. If they begin widespread testing in the next week or two, the math says the numbers of 99 cases will rapidly rise. That potentially changes optics, which would make them change their decision.
Just saw where LeBron James is suggesting they cancel the season.
The entire season?
Yeah.
Is that a mouthpiece comment?
No, I don't think so. I think at this point he's big enough where he can speak for himself.
I know, but would somebody float it for be okay?
No, probably not. I don't think that he would be that. I think that's just him saying, "Been a long year."
Been a long year and 72 days or whatever it is.
Well, but I think for the Lakers, that organization, it has truly been a long
true.
year. I think it has been difficult. Some of those guys are probably emotionally fatigued. Let's keep it real. These are phenomenal athletes who are pretty pampered in their lives, and the stress is probably worn on them. And then I think they look around and they go, hey, if you're an NBA player today, you're going, I fly in those planes. I played against him. I bumped him just the other day. Stuff's now you find out that this thing can be caught in the air. You don't have to kiss the person to get it. You can get it in the air.
Which, let's make a little differentiation there. Through not that it travels just through people's air, but because you're spittle and things. Yeah,
right.
2 different things. Just clarifying.
But it can live in the air for a while.
Yeah.
And so if you're a player that's played for the Thunder or the Raptors or the Pistons or the Celtics or the Knicks or the Cavs, you've been exposed to Rudy Gobert in the last 10 days. It's all of those players. I mean, they're all got to be thinking, hey, I need to find out what my deal is, because it's not. And again, this is the thing. Rudy Gobert's not going to die from this. He might have a tough week or two, but he's not going to die from this. But Rudy Gobert, I'm sure, has older family. Most of us do. So you have you been around people? Have you exposed people that are caretakers to? I was talking to another journalist yesterday who was saying he wasn't going to Nashville because he's like, I take care of my mom. She's in her 70s.
Not calling, as you said, at this point, this is not 100% media driven by any means or politically driven. Media plays a role. How do you think? I'm not saying they will. I'm just curious. Adam Carolla was talking about a couple days ago, hey, this thing is going to change tone a little when somebody we know gets it. Rudy Gobert has it. Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson have it. They're in Australia. What do you think the media response is when Hanks recovers from this in like 4 days and is fine?
I don't know.
Does it get covered up? Or they go, hey, if you're under whatever, chill out? Because at this point, not a lot of media is saying chill out on anything.
No, I don't know. I can't speak for media. As you know, I've been very critical of both sides of the media. The media shouldn't have sides. I mean, I'm a big believer in this. I mean, I've consistently said this. I go to sports games and I'm careful not to wear colors that look like either team. So if I'm in the news, you need to come across as a news reporter as someone who doesn't vote Republican or Democrat. You need to be down the middle, but that doesn't exist in our. So I don't know. There's lots of agendas. We are in the middle of a presidential election that I assume will not be postponed. So, we're going to have a summer full of this is going to continue to be a political football. From all accounts, Trump had a very moderate response. And when I say moderate on the political spectrum, moderate response last night. Was it praised? I don't know. Trump can go back and he can honestly say, in January, I tried to tell you we need to shut down travel from China, and you all called me racist. Turns out he wasn't racist. He was right. Does he get credit for that? Of course not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where it goes. Again, I go back to what I said a minute ago. We are in uncharted territory. We've not dealt with anything like this as a country in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how it all gets handled. And with social media and stuff being out the way that it is, out immediately, who knows?
The touching the recorders thing yesterday.
I'm told by someone who is around that team that he did, the day that he did this, he did not know that he had it.
Well, I don't think he knew it.
But it was dumb.
But optically, it's one of the dumber things you've ever seen in your life at this point. Anyway. Well, if you are staying home, Tyson Drugs and G&M Pharmacy can help you out because they deliver locally in the Oxford area. For G&M, 662-236-2222. They offer MedSync to even limit those trips to the pharmacy to once a month. If you so wish, they will fill it all on the same day and make it easy for you. Flu shots and more available, again, on the Square in Holly Springs or on South Lamar in Oxford with G&M Pharmacy. Again, that number is 662-236-2222.
We're also brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. We dropped a Mind on My Money podcast yesterday that was a lot about the coronavirus, about the markets, how they will react, some investment advice, all of that brought to you by Pinnacle Trust. It's pintrust.com, PINN trust.com. Mention that you heard about Pinnacle Trust on the podcast. You'll get 10% off your first year's fees. We're brought to you by Nest & Wild. Nest & Wild is a mattress company, Mississippi-based mattress company, making a high-quality mattress delivered right to your door. They make buying a new mattress easy. They're all 1 foot thick. They're all American-made. Incredible pricing. We'll throw in a podcast discount at nestandwild.com. Go there. Enter the promo code REBEL20 and get 20% off your purchase. And here's the deal. It's a no-risk decision. They believe in their product so much, they're offering a 99-night trial on every mattress. So try it out. Sleep on it for 99 nights. And if you don't like it, return it. Be at your door in 3 to 5 days. Again, nestandwild.com. We are also brought to you by the Iron Horse Grill. Iron Horse Grill is live music 4 times per week. Perfect place to enjoy lunch, dinner, or Sunday brunch in the Jackson area. It's 320 East Pearl Street. They've added the largest outdoor patio in Jackson right there along the Illinois Central Railroad. You can also check out the Mississippi Music Experience Museum on the second floor of the restaurant. So make it part of your next stop in Jackson. With Double Decker just around the corner. It's funny how you say things and you go, well, I wonder. Let's hope with Double Decker just around the corner.
As of yesterday, still on. I talked to somebody over there.
Yeah, let's certainly hope so. Blue Delta Jeans excited to announce the first ever Blues Alley, Saturday, April the 20th. The South 11th Alley will be closed to traffic for the day. From 10:30 to 4, they'll have music by Joe Austin and the Tallahassees and Jake and the Pearl Street Jumpers. Be a great place to escape the madness on the square, enjoy a drink from the Lyric Bar, and talk with the folks at Blue Delta about your next pair of Blue Delta jeans. The studio will be open all double-decker weekend, including Sunday morning, but the best way to skip the line is to set up your private fitting by emailing info@bluedeltajeans.com or by DMing Blue Delta Jeans.
Key told me yesterday that as of that moment, no changes to spring football. Again, we'll see. Give it a minute. Who knows? So,
yeah, I asked some people, not at Ole Miss, but just in general.
Baylor has delayed. Ole Miss is obviously first opponent. They have delayed until March 23rd at the minimum, is where they are right now. They put everything off for essentially 10 days to see what's up.
I anticipate that's what's going to come out of the league here in the next 3 days.
To put everything off?
To push everything. I think this March 30th number is a magic number for right now for the league. So Ole Miss was set to start spring on March the 18th and again March 17th. And again, I don't know this. My fairly educated guess, based on talking to people around the league a little bit, is that at a minimum, Ole Miss will push that back to March the 31st, I think. And given the fact that realistically, you're probably not going to have spring games, if you will. You could still get spring practice in. But I do wonder, and you and I talked about this yesterday, I do wonder, can you get spring practice in if you don't have classes going on campus?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer to that. And again,
that was something they were looking into yesterday that was undetermined.
Yeah. But you could get 15 practices in a 3-week period. You just change your plan. Or you could just get 10 practices in. It's not going to impact anything. So they might agree across the league, hey, we're going to cut it from 15 practices to 10 practices. No one's going to have a spring game, blah, blah, blah. Make it uniform where for the 1/100th of 1% of people who would be worried about fairness as it pertains to spring football, they'd be satiated. I don't know. Who knows?
So I opened up with it a minute ago. Have you gone and made sure you gotten everything for the next 6 months and say every store is going to close and we have no ability to get out of the house for most of 2020?
I don't think that's what's going to happen. I'm going to go to the store today. I am going to buy some canned goods.
No, I get some of that. My issue here is, and I'm probably pissing people off, and I apologize, sort of. You don't need to buy 300 rolls of toilet paper. We are creating our own shortage. That is the problem here. I was talking to somebody yesterday who said Australia literally ran out of toilet paper. The continent.
Yeah.
I checked last night because I was just curious for this podcast. It's $40 on Amazon.
Toilet paper?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what was sold out. Like, we're showing that, thank goodness, knock on wood, it doesn't get worse. This pandemic's not, like, killing everybody because we would not handle it well.
Oh, no.
Any type of adversity, and we freak out.
Yeah, of course.
Go buy everything. It's like I did need a few things, and I got like one of everything. Somebody was like, well, why didn't you get 10? It's like, well, because when I do that somebody else can't get it. Like, we're going to be all right. Like, Kroger is probably not shutting down tomorrow. They're going to figure this out. I'm so annoyed right now.
Could be probably a pretty couple of good months for marriage counselors,
think so.
Divorce attorneys.
Everybody's stuck in a house together for whatever this time period.
Going to be a lot of togetherness. People are going to lose. People are going to lose it. People are going to get a little antsy with one another. I've got a handful of books that I've been wanting to read. I've always played with this children's book that I've half written. I'm probably going to have some free time. I mean, I had anticipated next week being really heavy spring football, and I don't think we're going to be covering spring football. I'm not planning to do stories about the New Jersey numbers right now.
Developing
story. What number will Devon Clowney wear? I just, I think it's going to be an interesting time, and hopefully cooler heads prevail. But I'm not. That's really trusting people. Luckily for me, Chase, as you know, I've been into social distancing now for about 4 years. So this is not going to be as much of an adjustment for me as it's going to be for some others.
I think the golf course is safe. Very open. A lot of air. It's all right.
Yeah.
Just stay away from people. I think the golf course is fine.
Yeah.
Just go play golf every day, whatever.
I might take up golf.
Hey. Won't have anything else to do.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I do. I think people, like Jay and Gabe and I have a group text where Jay was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to write? I don't know. One of the things on this site that we do, and we've done it, we build community. That community's not going away, hopefully. So, everybody sort of rides it out.
The message board's been even more active, just chatting it up. Whatever.
Again, I sort of go back and lean on this. I've been listening to this American Elections podcast. This is not the most politically divided we've ever been. Not even close. This country always sort of survives. We always get through things, and we'll get through this too. Going to be okay. And if the worst thing that happens is we don't get a NBA playoffs, we'll make it. We'll get through it. If the worst thing that happens is we don't have an NCAA tournament, yeah, March is going to be different, and who knows? Maybe they decide to play the thing and TV ratings are off the charts.
Well, they'll be fine, yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. It's a fascinating next few days. What time is it now? It's 9:14 in the morning as we tape this, and the SEC tournament is scheduled to begin in 2 hours and 46 minutes.
Which means they're probably going ahead with the morning session.
And I think the ACC tournament is scheduled to begin in 1 hour and 46 minutes, which means they're probably going to go ahead. And frankly, they're probably going to get pretty good ratings today. So it's a talking point, and I hope that the broadcast crews are, and they were last night from what I listened to, they were very aware in the first game that Sankey was making that announcement in the second game. That got out pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the reason it got out so fast, by the way, in case anybody wonders, is the dance teams and cheerleading teams and bands were told, you guys need to start making plans to go home. You're not staying here. If your team wins, you're not coming today.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a weird feel for it. No cheerleaders. Think about the NCAA tournament, all the cutaways to the bands, cheerleaders, fans.
No one.
All those, the
Cobras.
Surrender Cobra, the kid crying. Any of that.
Nothing. Just
play.
Well, it's why if they do play it, I'm really interested in Swayze tomorrow night because it's going to be strange.
Yeah, it's going to be
Think about creating your own energy.
an intra-squad scrimmage.
Yeah, like Kendall texted me last night and was like, hey, media's in, right? And I'm like, yeah, I think. Like, perhaps.
And they got to be cool with that. You can't just open that, because I had several people go, if
No,
I start
I
a
think
blog.
It's either no new credentials or it's essentially, hey, somebody like Kendall, like, hey, okay, it's a reputable thing. They're not just going to start allowing JHV in with his horse site. Friend of the pod and a Thunder beat writer, Maddie Lee, said last night she's self-quarantining, even though they have no idea, just doesn't know how long, but just for the time being before they see what's up, considering last night being in the arena. So
Well, they were testing the Jazz riders. Like Tony Jones got
Really?
tested. I don't know what the result of that test was. I certainly hope for his sake that it was negative and that he can go home and he's okay. But he has certainly been exposed to Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
Which is why this is we're just in weird land right now.
Yeah. All right, we will cut there. We'll talk to you again tomorrow about probably a lot of the same things, but we'll figure it out. We'll try to be interesting, try to be a little new, and I'm sure something will come out as the day moves along. So be safe, take care, buy all the toilet paper you can find, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.